Alrighty, guys. So, welcome to part two of our drawing, and we're gonna do a lot more detail in this section. And I always want to try to encourage you guys if you want to support the channel. I want to be able to keep these videos free. So, if you guys want to go buy this drawing from my website, the link for the description, or the link is in the link is in the description, so you can go over there. You can actually purchase this drawing for yourself. So yeah, so that will definitely help me be able to keep pushing out content like this. So yeah, so with that being said, let's jump right into it. Very excited to get back to this, so let's have at it. Alrighty. I always get excited at the beginning of uh, these chapters. Um, I love the idea of just being able to show you guys like the progression, how it's all actually coming together. So we did a lot in the first video, and we're just gonna jump right into it and just start working more and doing more detail on this. So yeah, so I hope you guys are doing good too. Feel free to post in the comments below. Let me know how you're doing today, and let me know if you're enjoying the series too. It's always it's always extremely encouraging when I know that you guys are really really enjoying what you're seeing and all that stuff. So you'd be surprised how much encouragement it actually is when creating um, these videos. Alrighty, so let's just start off here. And so practically what I'm doing right now is just kind of adding some more shadow in just different little areas, different spots where I feel like it's going to need to stand out. All of this is going to help with the form of the drawing actually coming together, and just different things standing out more. Um, so yeah, so and we'll cover more, and you'll see how all this comes into play. But uh, just extend the brush a little bit, make this a little bit thick. So just carry it on down. And please make sure that you please make sure that you're on uh new layers when you're doing this kind of stuff too. Always check your layers first. That's very, very important, because you don't want to accidentally start drawing over work that you already have um that doesn't, need any more editing or anything. So always check that. It's very important. And save. Save, 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 save. Always save. Okay, so we dropped the opacity on that just a little bit, just because we don't want it to be too dark. Like I said, we're just trying to get like some form, and we're using this also to kind of generate some darker areas for where the shadow actually should be darker. So yeah, so we'll just keep doing that. So you can kind of see the difference right there. And we will merge that together. So now that's all one layer. And we're going to duplicate this. Now, a lot of times when I duplicate stuff, I use it to kind of help with shadow. So usually I just use the curves, and it will actually pull that down, which makes it a little bit darker. This is kind of where we're going to start really adding our volume in. So we have the eraser right now, and you can see it's very light, so it's not harsh. So you want it to be a very soft eraser. So you can see like we're erasing here on the top, how that's kind of creating some volume between like the front of the mask and the sides. So we're just going to kind of keep doing that, and it's really kind of adding some dimension to the drawing, and not just it being flat. So it's probably what we're doing is we're trying to prevent the drawing from looking too flat. Um, so we'll start to do it in certain little areas. As you see, I'm not doing it in like exactly every single spot, but also too, a lot of times too, you could drop the opacity on this. You could do it either, you could do it now or you could do it later. Um, but you'll see as we just continue to blend all of this together. So I'll just get a little bit right there on the knee, and then right here. So you can probably see at this point how all the setup work that we did in the previous video actually kind of helps us kind of, okay, so this is what I'm talking about right here. So just lower the opacity a little bit. But yeah, so the previous video, just kind of getting the work set up. So as we start doing this part, you know, we can kind of still see all of the important key areas for like the shapes and all that stuff. Okay, so right here, this is where we're actually doing our highlights. We're going to do a little bit. So this is going to help us to make certain parts of the helmet stand out a little bit more. So this is like the brighter spots is where light would be hitting, right? So if you were to take in any object or even your hand, if you were to take your hand and put it underneath a light source, you're going to notice like obviously how much brighter it is compared to the parts that aren't being hit as much with light. So you kind of want to do the same thing, and there's going to be quite a bit of adjustments on this. So as you can see, like right now, like we're dropping the opacity down a little bit, and I'm going to kind of do the same thing right here. And eventually all of this is going to be kind of, you know, pretty blended pretty well together, but it takes a little bit of time to get it to that level. So you know, if you're following along, or if you're, you know, you don't necessarily have to be drawing this drawing, but if you're still following with these methods and stuff, just make sure you give yourself a grace period, because that is extremely important, because you know, these drawings are gonna, it takes a while for things to start like shaping up the way you want them. So I'm putting more highlights here on his shoe. So as you can see, like that little bit right there, it makes it look like the shoe's not so flat, you know? So we're just adjust that just a little bit. So there we go. So you can kind of see how I was just hiding the layers right there, just hiding those a little bit, and you know, you kind of see how just the color layer is starting to shape up with all of the different tones and stuff that we already have in it. So eventually these lines that we have are going to be gone. So they won't be, yeah, so we can see. But yeah, they're not going to be, they're not really going to be there. We're actually going to eventually turn the opacity down or just get rid of them altogether. So this right here I like to do, and this you can just kind of play around with if you want, but I like just seeing like how different colors and stuff look by just kind of blending them together. Is a really good tool. Definitely would encourage you guys to use it. Um, but it helps me a lot when I'm trying to get like my volume of, you know, the drawing correct and all of that stuff. So, and then again, here's another, I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the other video, but sometimes as you're drawing, you're going to end up changing your background. Or at least I do. I change the background based on how the drawing is actually coming together. Because sometimes the drawing might look better if it's in a lighter area or a darker area. So it kind of depends, you know, and it kind of helps things just kind of pop out and stand out a little bit more strong. So just something you can play around with. There's no particular colors or anything that I would say that you have to use, but you can just try. So right here, I'm adding some more highlights, and these aren't going to be quite as strong as they look right now. So we drop the opacity down. Again, this is another way to kind of preserve some of the details that we actually have from our sketch layer. So as you can see, I'm kind of like tracing over these little spots right here. Feel free, you can get as close in there as you want. So you kind of see how I did that. We just got rid of the ink layer real quick, and you could still see. So that's kind of our goal. And it depends on the type of drawing you're doing. Like if you want something that's like really more like detailed looking, then you can get rid of the lines. Or if you're kind of going for more of a comic look, you can actually keep some of the lines. But for this particular one, we're not really going to be using those lines long term. So they're only here for a little bit of time. So you can always, like what I'm doing right now is just like turning layers off and on, just kind of trying to see and look how the drawing is coming together. What's the feel of it? And just kind of seeing what else I need to do. Now, mind you, those are some of my favorite brushes right there, but you're more than welcome to try any kinds of brushes that you feel that your drawing is actually in need of, you know? So um, feel free. Sorry if you guys are hearing like clicking right now. I'm trying to keep my my microphone going. I had to adjust it real quick. Zoom in a little bit right here. And this, all we're doing is just kind of making this stand out a little bit more. Just the areas around there. A lot of this stuff is not set in stone, so it's just like, you're just doing things to adjust and make things just so they're more noticeable. So like we're just going over with these lines right here just to make those stand out a little bit more. Because remember, the idea is we're not going to keep those original sketch lines. So when you're doing this type of drawing, you have to kind of be aware of that and just kind of like go over certain spots again and just like, okay, well, I don't want to lose the detail on that. So let me just go ahead and re-emphasize that area. So like see right here, like I'm doing like the fingers. As long as you can still see like the outline of them, then that's good. So because you just want to make sure that you're not getting like too lost with everything. And I do want you guys to know too, this is going to take some time and some practice to, just to get this flow. But these are steps that you can take that will definitely help you when you just want to draw something and you're just like, what to do. If you know what to do, it makes it so much easier than just feeling like you have to sit there and just try to figure it out. At the same time, though, drawing is always about sitting there and trying to figure things out. So, but once you have the steps, though, it makes it a lot easier. Um, but you're always going to be like looking at your own stuff and trying to figure out like what else should I do. Okay, so here's something else I like to do. So you can see like we duplicated that, and I'll play around with all of these different colors. And I like to, as you can see, we're going back to the curves right here, and then we're going to darken this a little bit. And you could do this however you want, like whatever you feel like looks cool or interesting. Um, because I always end up erasing a little bit of this, but it kind of just helps with some like undertones for the drawing. So as you see, like right now, I'm erasing. As you notice again, my eraser is very soft. It's not very harsh. Um, Eventually, you can use like a harsher eraser, but for like this, like you just want this little subtle colors that are right there. So um, that's why we play around with those. So as you can see, we just merged that right there together. And what we're going to do now is some highlights. Now, if you notice too, as I'm adding these highlights, you notice we're drawing underneath our sketch layers, which is kind of important because you don't want to lose the uh, the detail. You don't want to really be doing any of the color on top of these things because, like I said earlier in the first video, this is kind of like our cookie cutter. So we're just kind of using that as our guide, and then as we like add in these different areas. So as you can see, like now it looks a little bit more like there's light on the right side of this character. So you remember in the first video we had those little arrows that were indicating like where light and shadow hits and all that stuff. So as you can see, like I'm making sure that the hands aren't getting lost in all the color that we're adding. So every now and then you'll just have to go over just little important spots and just like make sure those stand out enough. And it's very subtle too. It's not like you have to have something like super super intense. Um, it's just enough just for yourself, just so you not losing the details. We're going to merge that together. Sometimes you might need to turn some of the opacity up a little bit or down. You adjust these things as need be, you know. So as you can see right here, we can see it stands out a little bit stronger, which sometimes you might need, sometimes you may not. A lot of this stuff too is like just kind of like eyeballing it and just seeing like what works. So right here, these are going to be kind of like a shiny part of the arm, and so we're kind of trying to make sure that those don't get lost either, because we want to make sure that there's a light, because practically these are like undertones of light that will exist as we continue to draw. So you just kind of, it's literally just layering things up, just layering, layering, layering. And then you drop the opacity on a little bit, because it just kind of helps it blend a little bit together, you see? And then so what we're doing right here is we have a really dark one, because this is going to separate like um, the little areas of kind of like a, almost like little parts where it could like rotate or whatever. So we drop the opacity on that a little bit, merge that together. And we can select that color. We can go up on it a little bit to make it a little bit brighter, make this a tad bit smaller. So you see how we just did like those few little layers right there, and now it looks like it's actually more like it has more of a shine to it. You see that? So it actually has some volume too. So it goes from dark to light, and then from light to dark. So it looks like it's a circular piece, like it goes around, and it's not just flat. That's one of the important things. That's why it's important to set up like where your light sources are, so you just kind of keep these things, you keep it you just keep remembering, like, okay, so this area should be dark, this area should be light. So right here I'm kind of redefining the robe that the character is wearing, because I don't want that to get too lost in everything that we've got going on. And as you can see, as we did that too, you could just see like the sketch layer just start to show through a little bit more. Could merge that together. Create a new layer. Make this a little bit smaller. Now this is kind of where the flap part of the robe is, so I want to make sure that I emphasize on that. So kind of retracing the outer edges on either side of the flap area of the robe, and of course we can drop the opacity down a little bit. So you see, we're not doing it so strong to where it's just like, geez, that's too much, but just enough to where you can still see it. And then right here, kind of doing the same thing that we were doing on the arm, just making this a little bit, just so this area stands out a little bit more, just so it looks like it has a little bit of a shine on it. Because the part, the trick is you want to make sure that the parts that are supposed to be metal have like a metal finish kind of look to them, and then the parts that are like cloth, you want those to look very like soft. So see, you can kind of see how without any of the sketch layer, it's kind of coming together, but our sketch layer helps keep us focused. But you can see it coming together, which is really cool. It's always the exciting thing. So it's like, it's like you kind of start with a painting, then you go to like sketch ish, and then a sketch, and then paint, and then you remove the sketch, and then paint, 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 and then eventually it just becomes more and more paint. So as you can see, we're going over this part because we need that to stand out again, but let's see, it's a little too thick, so okay, here we go. We'll just continue that on down right there, and then down the middle. Drop the opacity on that. There we go. And something I always like to do, again, is always just like click the layers, like to hide them, show them, hide them, show them, hide them, show them. Oh yeah, for those of you, sometimes people end up watching like not the beginning part of the video, but like the second part or sometimes the third part. Um, but for those of you that don't know, I'm actually drawing on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S7, and we are using Infinite Painter, which is truly a fantastic app for drawing. So now we're gonna redefine these little areas again. So as you can see, there's a lot of just going over a lot of the same areas that we had on our sketch layer. So we're just trying to make those stand out more and more and more. Again, too, you probably need to turn these layers on sometimes just to like get a quick refresh on how everything's supposed to be looking. So as you can see, we really haven't touched much of these wires, so we're going to go ahead and fill those in a little bit just so they're keeping up with the rest of the drawing. So you want to make sure that pretty much all areas of the drawing are being kept up with. So you don't want to leave something that's like just a sketch layer while the rest of it's like super detailed. You want to make sure that you're kind of keeping it all consistent. So, but as far as these are like, since these are like wires and stuff, like they're pretty easy. They don't require a ton of detail. Um, at least for this particular drawing. But you'll see, we'll still end up doing a lot to those to actually make them look all pretty and amazing. So in Infinite Painter, if you draw a circle and then hold, it will actually create a pretty smooth circle all the way around. So it's just a little trick. I'm sure a lot of people know that, but in case you didn't, now you do. So as you can see, we just duplicated the entire sketch or the entire color layer again, and here I am again playing with different colors and stuff. So we're going to adjust the size of our eraser, and again, make sure it's soft. I'm going to make sure it's soft. So you can see it was soft right there. So we're just going to kind of start erasing little spots. And again, I like to use um, this secondary layer of color. It's kind of a cool tone color. I like to use these for my undercolors for as I'm creating, because a lot of times it might be one color and then I'll switch it, but it actually helps add volume to it. It's actually, we're just going to go over it more like this. So you can really see the drawing is starting to take some shape. And here again, I'm kind of messing around with some different colors. Sometimes you have a little bit more control over the color, kind of getting a more custom look by using this versus just the other section in here where you can actually just like change the color or the hue. So I really like to use this a lot. I use that for so much stuff. But I'll just play around with something until like I feel like I like the color combination that's being blended together. And again, these colors do not stay the same. Like I work with them until I get to where I feel like the drawing is looking, in the direction that I have or that I want. So remember, as we said in the first video, you draw out or you write out like a little, just like a little, I don't even know, like some quick sentence or whatever of describing what you want to draw. And if you feel like you're getting off track, you can always look on your phone and go back to that and be like, oh, okay, yeah. So this is what I was doing. Maybe I've come to this point now and I want to change something that I originally wrote out. Um, so yeah. So here I'm in filters. So I like to use this gradient one because it's kind of one of those things where you can kind of get multiple color choice to some degree. Um, and it's really cool. So like you can play around with that, but it's practically the same thing we did with the previous layer, how we just changed the color on it and then switched it up. So see, look at that. So we can kind of get some interesting looks. So I'll use that quite a bit as well. And then of course we drop the opacity on it a little bit, and then we come back in with the eraser. It saves so much time because you don't really have to necessarily blend like using like a smudge tool or something to like blend these colors together. The eraser can be used really good as just a tool. A lot of times people think the eraser is just for mistakes or correcting things, but it's actually not. So it is for that, but it has so many more uses than that. So if you look at the eraser as just like a regular tool instead of just like, oh man, I got to use the eraser again because I messed up. Like, just don't view it that way. Um, the eraser is really good, especially when you start doing like cleanup work. Um, so right here, I'm kind of wanting to make these little parts of the helmet a little bit darker right here because I want those to stand out a little bit more than what they are. So not super strong. You can see how much we use the opacity in this series so far of just like adjusting things. And if this all feels overwhelming, don't stress. There's so much time to be able to like just get your feel for this. It's just playing around with things and just seeing what works for you, you know? I'm very happy to share with you guys my workflow for all of these drawings, so you guys can just kind of see what works. So see, here we go. I'm using the eraser to kind of do a little bit of cleanup work. It's always a good idea as you're working to every now and then just clean up a little bit. Doesn't have to be like perfect or anything. You kind of get a little more precise once you start getting closer to like the end of the drawing when it comes to like the cleanup work and all that stuff. So there we go. So we can kind of see the sketch layer, the color layer. So we're going to play around with the colors again because that's what I like to do. I love colors so much, so I just like seeing like, well, what would it look like if it looked like this and stuff. And that really can do a lot for your drawing. Like, can actually like take it in a whole different direction based on just what colors you're enjoying, you know? But you'll see. I end up doing some pretty interesting stuff. Again, like I said, these colors aren't necessarily like the colors that are going to be like, oh yeah, for sure it's going to be this color. They're just kind of to help get the undertones and stuff. So as you can see right now, I'm kind of playing with the brightness and the temperature. And a lot of times this is literally just to help me with the volume of the drawing. So for this time, as you can see, it actually made the eraser a little bit sharp. So this can actually kind of help when trying to make some of the areas actually stand out a little more harsh, so where you can tell like, okay, that's a corner and it's not just like soft, like it's more sharp corner. So like you can see right here, and it also makes some of the shadows stand out a little bit stronger. So as you continue to practice, like, drawing in this method and stuff, you'll know when to start kind of using these things and stuff. Now, mind you, it's going to take some time and practice, but you will get there. I guarantee you. I have no doubts. So you can see right there, just erase a little bit over the wire. I'll do right here on his shoe. And we're still kind of keeping in mind of all the areas that the light is actually supposed to be hitting So we're just kind of not losing track of that, which is it's still very important. So put a little bit right here on the knee, even though that's a more darker area, but still we don't want that knee to just end up with all the layers we're adding. We don't want it to end up just turning black. So now here I'm getting a little bit smaller. Zoom in a little bit just to get some of these areas. So you can see we're like making sure that that flap on the robe stands out a little bit more. Same here. Now the reason why I did it lower down is because that's actually aligned where the face is, so it's kind of creating a shadow right there on the side of his left shoulder. So you'll see like on the flap of the robe it goes from bright and then back to dark. So you can kind of see, you can see it if you kind of stand back and look at it, you can see like, oh yeah, that's a shadow right there. And then again, kind of going over those little parts right there. So we brought that up just a little bit. To see what I mean, like you could probably really see it at this moment right now where I say cookie cutter. I feel like we're literally carving uh, this character out of the sketch layer that we set up. What I'm doing right now is just making sure that I don't let certain areas get too dark. So just literally just brightening it up a little bit. If you look at my eraser, the little tab over there, it's like almost half. So it's just a little bit softer. And then you can look at that contrast. You can see that. What a big difference, right? We're doing the full thing, guys. We're doing the full drawing. We're gonna do the full background, everything. So you're gonna get to see all of this. And as you can see, I'm making the contrast on this like stand out a little bit more. Alrighty. Adjust the size. Okay, so what we're doing right here is we are adding in highlights. So this is kind of like what would you call? Kind of like a rim light or a backdrop light, kind of like off to the corner. So this will kind of help the other side, which in this case is the left side. It's going to kind of help us kind of not all of that because it's darker on that side. It's going to kind of like help the drawing actually stand out a little bit. So it's just a kind of nice like side reflected lighting, which is really cool. So we're just going to carry down right over here, and we could turn it down a little bit too because it doesn't have to be like super intense. Again, it's one of those things to just make sure that you're not losing the detail on the parts that like still need to stand out. So this is just a cool way, and it looks really cool. Like when you see the finished version of this, I think you guys will probably really like it. So just go up right there on the finger. And then we'll come down here on the coat or the robe, and then on the leg, just like so, and a little bit here on the shoe, and I should say boot, because it's more of a boot. You can turn that down a little bit more. This is something that you want to be like a more of a soft light. You don't want it to be like terribly harsh. And then again, here I go playing around with the colors. just go ahead and leave it at that for right now. Just remember, nothing is set in stone because we're going to change a lot of stuff on this. You can play around with the brightness or whatever. All of that stuff is just open for you guys to experiment with on your own and just see like what works, which I strongly encourage, because experimenting and playing around with stuff, that's a lot of times just how uh, you get you get better at stuff. It's looking pretty good, but we still have a long ways to go. But I hope you guys are having fun. Hope you guys are enjoying this. So definitely smash that like button and leave some comments below. Let me know how you guys are feeling with this. I always love the feedback. It's truly amazing being able to hear how you guys are experiencing all this stuff. But yeah, so we're about to end this video, but the next one should be available. Depending on what time you're watching this. If you're watching them as they premiere, the next one will be out tomorrow. If you're watching this after, um, then it should be it should be available instantly. So I'm using this blur tool just to kind of smudge some of this stuff together. I guess I should say smudge tool, but just to keep these things a little bit not so harsh, some of the colors. But as you'll see, we still have a lot to do. So, because again, we want this to look like it's not so flat. It's still pretty flat, but it's coming together. So, I think that's going to wrap it up pretty much for this video, but I want to encourage you guys to continue on with the next one, because it's going to be a fun series. We got a lot of stuff. Don't forget to save. And then also too, like I said too, if you guys really enjoy these videos that I'm doing, I want to be able to keep them free. But if you guys want to help support me to help me be able to keep making content like this, it'd be really awesome if you guys go over to my website, which is in the link in the description. You can actually buy this drawing if you want it. And there's going to be some cool options and stuff for you guys over there once you go and see. But it does help me to be able to keep making these. So feel free, go over and buy this drawing or some of the other drawings that I have up on my website. So every little bit definitely helps going towards me being able to keep putting out these free videos. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in part 3.